If you're looking to buy your first super sport twin, well, you have come to the right place as we have got three of the hottest contenders in this segment, starting with the Yamaha R3, the Aprilia RS 457, and the Kawasaki Ninja 500. And I've got my two colleagues, Karan and Aakash, with me, and we have come on a 300 plus kilometers road trip to this lovely location. Now, we have ridden these motorcycles in city, in twisties, and we had some really nice time on the highways as well and these coastal roads as well. So overall, we have a fair experience of what each of these motorcycles offers. Now, it's time to find out which one offers the most bang for your buck. So guys, before we get on with the bikes, I want to ask you, how was the road trip?
Good.
I think pretty diverse.
The second half, I would say, was good because the first half in the city
it was really hot.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
But we did get like the perfect set of environments to test all three motorcycles. Like this is what he told us. This is what Shivank said. We'll be sitting on the beach on in our shorts by the seaside.
Not me well.
That's all I knew. I didn't know anything else, and I think it didn't disappoint. Like we were riding along the sunset on a cliffside, the sea-facing cliffside,
Yes.
and I think it was pretty epic.
I mean, the moment I could smell the sea, like once we got close, I knew we were in for like a really good time. So, and that's what has happened.
And yeah, we didn't just have fun because the roads, like it threw all sort of things
Yep.
at us. Because in the starting, it was a city ride where
Yeah.
we spent like
With
60,
bad
70
roads.
kilometers. Yeah, bad roads. Then in the middle, we had some really nice twisty section of road. So you could check the handling of these motorcycles. Then we had some straight roads where we could just unleash the full power of these motorcycles. Not full power, but close to full power, right?
Close.
And
Legal
then again,
full
we
power.
had a very bumpy section of roads. And then ultimately, we ended up here on the coastal road, which is again lovely. So now coming to the bikes, of course, we have to start with the Aprilia RS 457 because this is, like you can also see, the center of attraction everywhere. Now, Karan, what do you think? What are your first impressions of this motorcycle overall?
Okay, so the Aprilia was what I was looking forward to trying out the most, and those are the keys which I reached out for at the beginning, and it did not disappoint. As soon as I got on it, it was clear it is a talky hoonigan of a motorcycle, and it's exactly up my alley. It's making me question the decision of buying my bike, which is a Triumph Trident 660, and these two had their own good things to say about them. But I think the Aprilia really impressed me.
So what's the thing that you love the most about the Aprilia?
I think it's very easy to ride fast, and it just sounds so good. I think that 270-degree crank, it's just music to my ears.
And Aakash, what are your first impressions?
Yeah, I mean, I agree to the sound part because we rode all three motorcycles during different durations, and every time I was on some other bike, I could easily hear the Aprilia coming from behind in case if that was the thing. And boy, is this a gnarly motorcycle, is how I would put it. Like, you remember the old Dukes that would almost try to kill you? I'm not saying that in a bad way, but if you want thrill, if you want fun, this is the one to go for. And the throttle calibration is such that you just pull and it goes so cleanly and so fast.
And it's light. The throttle.
It's very light.
The throttle is light.
And you know, at the risk of pissing off some people, I would say this felt more like an EV in that regard, that you have that almost unhinged acceleration, and you just keep going, and that way, and even I think the sound kind of adds to that high-pitched sound that
the
you
whole
get.
Drama.
It's just a hoot to drive.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we have to say, I rode this motorcycle on the track, right? So it was limited time, limited duration. But on the road, again, a completely different kind of animal because first things first, like these guys are saying, the engine, that parallel twin engine, it sounds awesome, right? It sounds like a big bike engine, and you can ride either of these bikes. We'll come to them later, but you can always hear the Aprilia wherever it's coming from. So it gives you that sense of, you know, occasion whenever the Aprilia is around, even if you're riding other bikes. So that sure is the case. The other thing that I love about the Aprilia on the road, especially the twisty sections, we rode this motorcycle on the track, but even on the road, the way it just turns in, you know, it's a very quick steering motorcycle. And the other thing is, also feels like a super sport, probably the most sporty of the lot. And but it doesn't come at the cost of the comfort, because the bars, I was thinking when I was riding all these bikes back to back, I thought the Aprilia has a lot more space. It felt a lot more accommodating. It had more leverage also. So in that sense, it felt like a cross between, let's say, a 210 and an RS V4. It's not as aggressive as it looks. So on the road also, you can ride it very comfortably. Of course, it's a little sporty compared to the other two, but yeah, when you're busy enjoying the motorcycle, you don't have to think about those things, right?
You know, one more thing that I really appreciate about the RS457 is that it's the only one with like a colored, like proper digital dash. That is the easiest to look at, to read, and to navigate.
So that,
yeah, and I think features-wise also, it is probably the most well-equipped motorcycle here. And it's not just the dash or, you know, all the fancy stuff. Even the headlamps. Last night we were testing, the headlamps were the brightest. So we were on some of the darkest roads here, and you can see it in the video right now. We will showcase you how the headlamps performed. And the Aprilia's headlamps, well, it's like the sun has come out.
Yes, it's
literally
bright.
Right?
It has got a good spread. It has got good illumination. I think the 500 comes in like a close second. The low beam on that, I felt, is much better than the R3. But on the high beam, the R3 takes the cake.
Aprilia is a clear winner in terms of not just headlamps, but in terms of overall equipment and what it offers.
Features. I just want to touch on the features really quick. Like I got on it. I'm the kind of person that likes to switch off TC as soon as I get on a motorcycle. I found it easy to switch it off. I found it easy to go through the modes. You know, so the dash is intuitive. You get a lot of features. You have 3 levels of traction control with each mode.
I mean, it's the only one with the traction control and ride modes. The other two
and the best part about the Aprilia, which we haven't spoken till now, is that it looks probably the best, right? It is the coolest motorcycle here. It looks like a big Aprilia every time you're riding it. Right? Every time you're riding this motorcycle, and I'd see it in the rearview mirror, and I was thinking, okay, it looks exactly like a bigger Aprilia. So apart from the tires, which you also pointed out that they are probably not as fat as an RS V4, of course, for obvious reasons.
That's the only giveaway.
Yeah, but otherwise the sound, it is like a proper motorcycle, and I don't think Aprilia has cut any cost in that sense, because it is a complete motorcycle. They have just gone out there and made a motorcycle that truly lives up to the Aprilia
You want to touch on the tires also real quick? Like some people might be thinking that you get, like these two get Dunlops, that gets TVS Protox, but they are not a compromise by any means. They do have tremendous amount of grip, and I felt they were planted, always hunkered down, and they give you the feel which you need from front and back while trying to ride fast.
Probably I'd say, honestly, even though Dunlops are really good tires, I preferred the Aprilia setup, because for some reason I got more feedback from these tires. It was surprising, because all of the guys, you think TVS Protox tires, again cost cutting, but that's not the case.
Even on the track, I mean, these tires were fantastic.
Okay, so moving on, the Kawasaki Ninja 500. Now, on the face of it, this is probably the most underwhelming motorcycle, because it's also the most expensive. And it is just a rehashed job. It has the same engine as the Ninja 400. I think it has a longer stroke, that's it. And it's not a 500cc. In fact, it's 451cc. So the Aprilia has more cubic capacity. This is 457, this is 451. So again, the name, well, they're lying, right?
Slightly misleading.
Slightly misleading. So okay, so coming to the motorcycle on paper, like I said,
that is exactly what the CC is.
And this is an Italian motorcycle, so you think Italians sometimes exaggerate, but that's not the case.
The Japanese
have exaggerated. So anyway, coming to the motorcycle, now first you tell me, how does it compare to the RS457?
Really smooth. It is just methodical in its nature, in terms of how it accelerates, in terms of how it brakes, in terms of how it turns in. So, like, as soon as I got on, I got that feeling that this is not an all-out super sport, if I can call it that. It is more relaxed. It is more versatile in its nature, and I think I really like that. And it just like when you get on it, it feels like an inline four. It is just so smooth. You can rev it out. It's easy going fast in this also, but in a different way.
Like you said, it looks boring, but I think if you look at it from the angle that I am looking at it,
Yeah.
it is the biggest looking
Yeah,
motorcycle.
I don't like the angle I'm looking at it from. Like, this
Yeah,
is not...
if you want a mean looking machine, something big and burly, then the Ninja 500 is definitely for you. Maybe the black color undermines the size a little bit because you can't see the highlights as well.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like Karan,
Just interrupting you, but that's the only color available here. It doesn't
Yeah.
get any other color option. So,
Oh, really?
so maybe Kawasaki should bring in their signature
Kawasaki
green.
green at least.
Yes, at least. And like Karan said, it's a very smooth motorcycle. The suspension is so compliant. And what I really like is even though the braking setup is pretty good on all three motorcycles, the progression of especially the front brake was the best on the Ninja. So that is something I really liked. And coming to the suspension also, now while the Aprilia is great in terms of handling, it's fast, it's quick around the corners, but the moment we encountered those slightly bad roads, not perfect tarmac, that is where the front of the Aprilia was, I think I was fighting with a little more, especially when exiting corners. If it's bumpy, then you have to be a little more careful with the Aprilia. While with the Ninja, you could just brake, the suspension would take it, you could accelerate out of a corner. I mean, I don't think anything unsettled this bike.
personally, I thought it was the most boring motorcycle, but that was before I rode it.
Yeah.
Right? So, like you said, it is a very sedate motorcycle. It doesn't egg you on to, ride fast or whatever, but it can do the speed. It is a fast motorcycle, very quick motorcycle. It has got the performance, and with this new engine, it has got a lot more torque. So, it doesn't feel like the old Ninja or the parallel twin where all the power is concentrated towards the top end. In fact, you can pull this in fourth gear in the hilly sections, and you can go uphill also in fourth gear. Like he was saying, he pulled it from fourth gear, like
from a standstill, basically.
Standstill, yeah. So that engine has a lot of torque, and at the same time, it is quite refined. Now, again, there are some vibrations, but not as much as the Aprilia. You ride both these motorcycles back to back, and you immediately feel how smooth the Ninja is. And I think that's what I loved about the Ninja, because the engine, well, it is very tractable in that sense.
Correct.
And the Aprilia, even though the throttle response is quite great, but the Aprilia always feels like, it is very snappy in that sense compared to all the other bikes probably have.
Yeah.
So Aprilia, if you're a new rider, you will love the throttle calibration, but the Ninja, it sort of, comforts you with its acceleration.
Just to add to that, when you and I were riding, we were in sport mode with the traction control off, but you have eco mode with eco and rain, with where you can calibrate the traction control as per you want. Then it becomes a little more user friendly.
And I think with the Aprilia, it needs to be ridden in a certain style, right? It wants you to ride it hard and fast. The Ninja 500, well, it's a motorcycle that will suit.
I think it can go both ways.
Yeah, it goes, I mean, whatever
It's very
kind
forgiving.
of, whatever kind of rider you are, you love the Ninja experience. If you are a sporty rider, you like to ride fast and hard, well, it'll do that for you. You want to put your knee down, it'll do that for you. It has got great balance. You want to ride at a relaxed pace, it'll do that for you without breaking a sweat. Similarly, you know what, over this journey, it was really hot.
Yeah.
And I remember, like I said, in the beginning, I thought the Ninja is probably the most underwhelming, but I was reaching out for the keys of the Ninja every time we take a break because it's the most comfortable. You see these motorcycles on paper and you make an opinion, but when you ride in the real world, especially we are road tripping, so we did 300 kilometers, like I said, different conditions. So I thought the Ninja was probably the best suited for that sort of job. So if you're someone...
It's what you chose at the day, like when you got tired, it was
As
hot.
the day progressed.
This is what you went for.
And this is the case because if you are someone who still... I probably relate to the Ninja 500 because if you're someone who wants to have that sporty riding experience, you don't want to feel old to be riding an ADV, at a relaxed pace, relaxed ergonomics. And you want some sporty riding, but at the same time, you also want, your bones not to creak. I think the Ninja 500 is probably the best motorcycle. I'm just sticking my neck out
Yeah.
and saying that because it felt the best of the lot for sure. And again, the ergonomics are quite sorted. It's not very committed, but at the same time, it's not very relaxed as well. The other thing I want to talk about is the suspension.
Before we go to suspension, I just want to give context to the audience here. He reached for this because he wanted a more relaxed riding experience. I like punishing my body. I like to scare myself, and that's what I found myself reaching out for all the time. The RS 457.
And by process of elimination, you can get which bike I got.
Yeah.
And the other thing is basically, the Ninja suspension. I want to talk about
Yeah.
that because it gets conventional forks, and these are 41 forks, right? And all like both the other bikes, they get upside down, more advanced suspension.
Yeah.
But on the road, again, coming
Yeah.
back to how the Ninja feels, you can't upset this suspension anywhere. It feels the most supple. It feels the most comfortable. At the same time, it is well damped if you are going to push the motorcycle. It doesn't feel sloppy, and the front end has a lot of bite. So I really love this motorcycle everywhere. The only downside probably overall is that it feels a little boring in that sense,
Yeah.
right? It's fast, everything, but everything is sort of happening in the background and you don't really feel connected to the motorcycle. It's a great product, great motorcycle, right? Like I said, if you want
Yeah.
to go at a relaxed pace, whatever, it does everything you want. It's very intuitive in that sense, but it doesn't have the thrill of the Aprilia. The another thing compared to the Aprilia, which I really appreciate on the Ninja, is that the Aprilia suspension, it felt a little too stiff, and there's a lot of vertical movement, even though it comes with preload adjustability, but the suspension, it's inherently very sporty. So if you're going to ride it on a bumpy road, like we are riding in one of the sections, so it's a twisty road, but it's very bumpy, right? And you're going downhill, let's suppose, and it's very bumpy. So every time you brake the suspension, it's never settled. And the brakes on the Aprilia also, they are good. The feedback is not there as the Kawasaki or even the R3. So I didn't have a lot of confidence in the sense when I was going really fast on a bumpy section and then, trying to brake really hard.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was kind of skipping. And other thing is, the Aprilia, it doesn't get, there is no heel plate over here.
Yeah.
So did you notice?
And there's a
it?
makeshift heel plate.
No, it's not. So basically,
What?
when you,
That's not a heel plate?
no, that's not. So this is the swing arm, right?
Yeah, so
Actually, yeah, they've covered it.
Yeah, that's what I'm
for
saying.
Sure.
That's
But what happens is when you're riding it and you're resting your foot on it,
Yeah,
right?
it just-
and,
it
and-
moves.
and-
Yeah.
and it's always moving. So there's a weird sensation.
we
Okay.
should talk about the R3 a little
Yeah,
bit.
we have
Yes.
to talk about the R3 now. Again, this is a motorcycle that always flies under the radar, especially because of its price tag, right? And everyone says, of course, it's a very expensive motorcycle, which is the case for sure because it's a CBU. Now, I've lived this motorcycle, not this motorcycle, but the
previous
previous
one.
version for close to 2 years. And I thought at that point in time, it was a perfect motorcycle for Indian roads. I still swear by it because the previous R3 was one of my absolute favorites. And it's a motorcycle that could do everything. It is, probably it still is, one of the motorcycles that, it is deceptive on paper in the sense it's underwhelming. But when you ride it in the real world, it has everything that you'd want from a motorcycle.
What's the price jump now between the old R3 and the now? And
I think
the
it's
current?
around 80,000 rupees.
That's not bad.
But the problem is the Aprilia sort of crashed the party, right?
Yes.
Even the Ninja 500 is 5.23 lakh.
Yeah.
Similar specs, okay, this is a 321cc. You might think that in terms of performance or cubic capacity, it's not quite there. But out in the real world, is probably as quick, if not.
Yeah, I mean,
as
whoever
good as-
was on the R3 at least did not
Was-
have any trouble keeping up with the
Keeping
other
up,
two
yeah.
bikes. So it's not like it's underpowered. Yes, they have more power, more torque, but
And
I mean, anyone
especially
who
when
was
it
on
comes
the
to
R3.
twisties like this, the cockpit, you can conform inside it pretty easily. You have a lot of leverage from the bars. So I felt like this was a little more maneuverable
but
than
I
this.
thought, compared to the old R3, which was more like the Ninja 500, this one is more aggressive because the clip-ons have been lowered. It feels more like the R5, so it feels more sporty somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
The previous R3, I used to think one of the best sports tourer. It still is, but this has, it feels a little more sporty. And in terms of ergonomics and riding posture, I think it sits somewhere between the Aprilia and the Kawasaki, right? But the only thing is, I felt it was a little too cramped. The handlebar are really narrow, right? And
Can I give the audience a little context here? Like this is really committed. This is a lot more relaxed. That's in between.
That's in between. But yeah, but in the Aprilia, it's, you have a lot of space to move around. The Aprilia, the bars are really wide. So if you're shifting your body around in corners, I think this gives you a lot more space. In that sense, it's very accommodating. But the R3, I thought it was sort of it was a limitation for me personally, like to move around. But it felt a little sporty. It felt a lot more compact. It felt like a bigger R15, to be very frank, but it had a lot more power. Coming to the engine, it is the same engine technically, but for some reason it felt a little more strained. I think it could be because of the new emission norms. So the engine, it really doesn't have that sort of performance lowdown compared to the Ninja, or Aprilia is in a different level, but it didn't have that sort of power.
Yes.
So if you are a little old school in that sense, I think probably you'll enjoy it because you really want to wring the throttle. So that's when you'll enjoy the R3's performance, and I personally like it.
But
It's a screamer of an engine, because I had the pleasure of riding this on the Buddha International Circuit. So like I could go really fast, and this easily did like 160 plus. So there is power to go fast. There are the aerodynamics, and this engine, you really want to wring it like properly.
Yeah.
And I think that the lack of power and torque in the lower revs is something which is inherent even to the R15 if you look at that. So that character has carried forward in the R3 as well. And like I said, this does a lot of things in between these two bikes, which is actually good, because if you want something balanced, this brakes well. Let's say it's not as vague as the RS 457, it's not as progressive as the Ninja 500, but it's still not something that you can't understand after maybe like 5-10 minutes of riding. The dynamics in terms of riding through the twisties, again, pretty sorted. You
And
can
the second
easily
best sounding bike here.
Yeah,
Yes.
it actually sounds really nice for a parallel twin. It sounds really nice. You can
Really nice.
Yeah, the engine, it has the typical like rotty sort of throaty
Yeah.
sound that it produces, which is surprising. It felt definitely the engine. It probably the R3 felt a little more connected than the Ninja. You enjoy riding the R3
Correct.
in that sense for sure. And again, the overall balance, the suspension, everything, it's slightly better from the Kawasaki in terms of if you want sporty riding experience. Like we said, it sits somewhere between the Ninja and the Aprilia. The other thing about the R3 that I want to talk about is the features. Now, you're paying that kind of money and you're not getting a lot of features. You know, technically, like I said, I don't really miss a color TFT display. I don't really miss a traction control. This motorcycle, I'm not saying I'm like a very pro rider, but it's a motorcycle that's very forgiving. The nature is that it's very forgiving in that sense. The other thing is, what I really missed was that slipper clutch.
Exactly.
And in this day and age, I think really that's really not that great, because you know, when you really have to downshift, you can feel the rear skipping, and that's something that even an R15 has a slipper clutch, right?
Which
With a
makes
quick
it even worse
and
for
it
this.
R15 also has a quick shifter. The R3 shows that Yamaha wants to be in that space, but they're really not as committed as Aprilia, because if they produce this motorcycle here, they have a plant here. I think they've been producing motorcycle for decades in India. So what they need to find out is a way to sell this motorcycle, and Aprilia's numbers will probably encourage them. If they can price it near the Aprilia, I think people would still choose Yamaha, because the overall reliability, you know, the brand factor, I think Yamaha has a bigger brand following in India. Aprilia, yes, we love the motorcycle, everything is there, but the future of Aprilia, in the sense in terms of service, reliability, that's a big concern, and you can't shy away from that. Aprilia says that they have fixed everything and they have a lot of dealerships, but again, it will take time to reflect, right? So if you're not really sure you're spending that kind of money, you might as well spend more and buy the R3. But the problem is the R3 again commands a huge premium. It's not that it's not worth it, but again, when you put the competition in picture, well, I think that's when life is very difficult for the R3. To be very frank, if let's say the R3 is priced exactly at the same price point as the Aprilia, I think even I would be confused for sure. I know Aprilia offers a lot more, but if the R3 can come at around that price tag, even with lower CCs, lower power, less equipment, I think it will still find a lot of takers. The only problem right now is it doesn't even match the RS 457. And like I said, the RS 457 has sort of killed the segment in that sense, because it is such a complete motorcycle.
And can we just talk about like service and spare costs? Like that's what we were discussing, where spare costs
Kawasaki's are known for like being very expensive to
yeah,
service.
Yeah. And surprisingly, Aprilia came out, the Italian came out.
The other problem, I think, with the, again, this was something I can't officially comment on it, like whether it's true or not, But we were discussing yesterday, we thought the Yamaha was going to be the cheapest to service.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the case. We don't quite know as yet. But it's a CBU. So most of the components here are going to be, they're not manufactured here. There are no suppliers here. So if, let's say, you break this brake lever, right, it is going to come from outside, probably Thailand. That's where the motorcycle is made. So there is a cost attached to that also, because everything has to be imported. So I think maybe in terms of regular maintenance service, it won't be as expensive. But if you break anything on this motorcycle, if you damage anything on this motorcycle, especially the body components, I think this is going to cost a lot more compared to Aprilia, probably, because the Aprilia is made right here in India, right? Everything on the Aprilia, more or less, is made here, apart from the accessories, which are
It's really expensive.
really expensive. Bike cover is for 16,000 rupees. That's the problem with Aprilia, because those
Quick
parts,
shifter. How much is the quick shifter?
quick shifter is 28,000 rupees.
28,000.
So
Wow.
yeah, the gearbox is quite nice, but the great part is all of these things are optional, right? Yeah, they're not forcing it on you that you have to buy it. But that's the same problem, because those parts are not made here. Those accessories are made in Italy. So there is a cost attached to that for sure.
And talking about reliability, I think out of these three, I think I would find Yamaha's reliability the best. Like, I would feel most secure with the Yamaha, knowing that it is going to last for a very
Yeah, and
long time.
a lot of people don't counter that fact, because the peace of mind is very important when you're owning a motorcycle, right? If you want a product that can that's bulletproof, I think the Yamaha still probably does the job. Okay, so we've spoken about these motorcycles in great detail, but let's quickly get down to the verdict. Let's sum it up. So Karan, you tell me first, what's the Aprilia 457? Who is it meant for?
The RS457 is meant for someone who is Karan. Basically, who wants to ride fast. He doesn't really care too much about comfort and all that. But someone who prefers performance, something that looks good, who wants attention on the road.
Yeah, and it definitely looks good and is made well. So if you want a well-built motorcycle that is also value for money, considering that it is the most affordable of the lot.
And feature loaded.
Yes, this is definitely your pick.
I think, yeah, the Aprilia, has the purest sport bike experience. That's what I'd say. If you can't really afford a RS660 or an RS V4, I think this gives you
The feel.
60% of the thrills,
Yeah,
to be very
100%.
frank.
I feel a little more, like maybe
yeah,
70%
just the engine
on a
performance is not there, but it has got everything going for that, and it comes at a kick-ass pricing. So I think for Aprilia, that really works in its favor. Now, the Ninja 500, what do you think? Who should buy it?
This is for someone who wants comfort, who wants to basically live with a bike on everyday basis and never really feel hassled with and think twice that am I going to be okay in stop-go traffic, am I going to be okay on 200 kilometers of highway stretches. It's an all-round versatile and like decently fast motorcycle.
Yeah, I mean, it is actually fast. You can easily do triple digit speeds. You can push it around corners, surprising despite its size and everything. So comfort, definitely. And when you want, you can even go really fast on this motorcycle.
So you want biking to be easy, choose this. You want biking to be fun and scary, choose that.
I think for Ninja 500, for me, I think I can relate to that motorcycle because it is sporty when you want it to be, right? But at the same time, it's very comfortable. And I think it's the best sports tourer of the lot here. So if you are into long distance riding, I think the Ninja makes more sense. Now, coming to the last motorcycle, the R3, who should buy it?
If you buy an R3, if you want to buy an R3, you want that reliability from the brand. You want something that will be used on everyday occasion, your commutes, but also the weekend rides to have a bit of fun. Touring, again, this would be more preferable touring. This as a more all-round motorcycle.
Yes, I think this is more of a motorcycle for the masses who don't really maybe go out on tracks. They want something which they can use daily, does not feel underpowered, has that vanity of being a premium motorcycle. That way, I think the R3 is pretty good.
If you want to fly under the radar, this is the motorcycle to buy because in traffic with its black color, it has that blue also, but even then that looks very common. So this motorcycle, if you want to fly under the radar, you care about Yamaha's pedigree, you know, the brand, and you relate to Yamaha more, you are a brand loyalist, it is a great motorcycle, to be very frank, and it does everything right. There is no faulting this motorcycle apart from the price tag, I'd say. And this is a motorcycle that, you know, on paper it's not that great, it's underwhelming, but when you ride it, you think you really immediately connect to this motorcycle. So I think it's a shame that Yamaha couldn't price it properly, but otherwise it is a great motorcycle, and hope Yamaha starts producing this motorcycle. They
Yep.
take
That's-
you know,
that-
some inspiration from Aprilia and start making it, lower the price tag, then they can really sell it in more numbers. Okay, that's it. But quickly, of the three, which bike would you choose?
I was just going to come to that. It's going to be the RS 457. It suits me the best, my character. It's a motorcycle which I somewhat regret buying my big bike, which is the Trident 660. That's saying a lot.
You chose the RS? How surprising. I would definitely pick the Ninja 500 because of its comfort, and especially on longer journeys like you mentioned. This is the perfect getaway motorcycle.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I have the deciding vote.
Down to you.
Yeah, but I think, again, I love the R3, I love the Ninja, but overall, I think the RS 457 is a motorcycle that's really hard to
Tugs at your heartstring.
hard to fault also. And yeah, it's a motorcycle, you know, you want a sporty, I love the Ninja because I'm a little lazy also, right? And like I said, at some point in time, you want a relaxed riding experience. But I think the RS 457 is something that gives me that, you know.
Yeah. You know, you've seen that meme where that guy is like going
Yeah,
for the...
and you buy, you
someone
want-
else comes along
Yeah,
and picks you
yeah,
up.
the RS.
yeah, and you want to get into sporty riding, you want to get back to your younger self. I think that's why I enjoyed the RS 457 more. Okay, so overall, we have decided the winner is, of course, the RS 457. But ultimately, I think all three bikes are winners in their own right, for sure, because again, different folks, different strokes, right? And now the sun is out, it's getting really hot, and we don't want to be dehydrated again. So we have to hit the road back again.
Head back to
and we
Pune.
really enjoyed these motorcycles. So we are on our way back. And you guys don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also share it with your friends who are confused between these three motorcycles, and also watch more of our videos.
And tell us which bike would you pick in the comments.
Definitely.
See you
Thank for
again.
watching.
See you later.